I'm Kevin, and I'm joined by my co-host with Harrison Bader like hair.
Yeah, it's a weird ordeal. Katie is just proving to be childish.
Which is why I don't feel I would give $5 million to Jack Campbell.
I don't know. Baseball is one of those sports where anyone who makes the playoffs really can be a contender.
I think the Padres definitely do it.
I don't think Donovan Mitchell gets traded.
Kyrie Irving does have the track record of not being a great locker room fit, or even good locker room fit.
Bader got some luscious locks. I gotta say it.
This is Zach Bigley, the broadcaster for the Frisco Rough Riders, and you're listening to Outsiders Opinions with Kevin and Austin. You guys better subscribe.
What's up, y'all? Welcome to our NBA Opinions of the Week. And as the NBA gears up for its next season, you start to wonder kind of what teams will be good. And one team that I don't think they will be good, Austin, is the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, they have kind of rebuilt in a weird fashion. This all goes back to trading Tyrese Halliburton for Domantas Sabonis. But they've also gotten rid of De'Aaron Fox. So they've moved in a weird direction. But now they have Zach LaVine, who they had for the second half of last season. They still have DeRozan. They just signed Russell Westbrook today as we're recording this. And they've kind of built their team their team's pretty old, but they do have some young guys I like. I really like their rookie, Nick Clifford, out of Colorado State. He's a great player. I think he's extremely underrated. And Kevin, you know one of my favorite players in the league is Keon Ellis, who I think is one of the best 3-and-D players in the league currently. But if we're looking at the roster for this season, I do have some concerns. There are only 2 point guards on the roster, like true point guards, are Dennis Schroeder and Russell Westbrook. Keegan Murray's kind of dealing with an injury. He's another young guy that I do believe in. They have Dario Saric on the roster. It's just going to be weird, I think. But Monk is a great player. I think that Monk will start. We'll see if they end up starting Keon Ellis. I think they really should because he's their best defensive player. But we'll see if they do that. But their team is just built a little bit awkwardly. I think that probably Malik Monk will start at point guard, even though he's not a true point guard. And then it'll go LaVine, DeRozan, and then the 4, whenever he's healthy, Keegan Murray, and then at the 5, you'd have Domantas Sabonis. And if you don't go like that, then you'd bring Malik Monk off the bench, which he has done for the majority of his career. And I don't think, if they were contenders, I think he'd be okay doing that. But what are your thoughts on this? Most of the guys they have on the roster are kind of on the older side, at least the ones that are going to be producing most of their points. If you go, DeMar DeRozan's in his 16th season. Dennis Schroeder, who may start at point guard as well, is in his 12th season. You have Zach LaVine in his 11th season, and Domantas Sabonis is in his 9th season. So, this will be Domantas Sabonis' 10th season. I think this will be DeRozan's 17th. I think all those were their experience, not actually years. So this is the 10th year of Sabonis, even though he is only 29. So it's not like Sabonis is exiting his prime or anything this season, but they have a lot of guys who played at least 10 plus years in the league, and that's going to be the majority of their starting roster.
Yeah, and they're a team that I don't think they have a clear set plan anymore. They had a great start, and I would say they had a bright future when they finally made it back to the playoffs. But when you look at that roster, it's a completely different roster. And one thing that sticks out to me is kind of how they addressed getting DeMar DeRozan and realizing and moving away from Harrison Barnes. It just is hard to build around this team now because, yes, Sabonis is a great player and a good player to build around, and a piece to say. But now I think you're adding a lot of old guys, and I don't see it all fitting. I think DeMar DeRozan and Sabonis do not really fit together.
That's true, but I think if Sabonis can lend away some of the duties for creation to him, I think they'll have a solid opportunity. Because DeRozan, while he cannot shoot really well, and neither can Sabonis, Zach LaVine can. Malik Monk can. So can Keon Ellis, like I mentioned previously. So I think they have the chance to actually, I think, be a playoff contender, a contender to make the playoffs this year. The problems I have are more regarding whether or not their coaching is going to be a good fit. They fired Mike Brown last season. Now Mike Brown is the head coach of the Knicks, so he's no longer there. And you have a situation where it's a coach that I don't really know if he's going to be able to. It's going to be hard to have a good game plan. Doug Christie is their head coach for this season. He has been a head coach before, I believe. Oh, no, he hasn't. This is his first year as a head coach. Okay. He was interim last year. So they have a first-year head coach, a guy that did play for the Kings during their best years in franchise history back in the early 2000s. But it's going to be tough to balance. It's going to be really dependent on how LaVine and DeRozan and Sabonis kind of complement each other. I don't know where Schroeder really fits unless Schroeder can start shooting better. That's why I really like Keon Ellis for this roster. Because if you can have your front three be like Malik Monk, Keon Ellis, Zach LaVine, and play kind of a small ball, or even Keegan Murray, because Keegan Murray's another great guy. So if you put like kind of Zach LaVine at the 1 and Keon Ellis at the 2, DeRozan at the 3, Keegan Murray at the 4, and Sabonis at the 5, you'd have 3 of your 4 or 3 of your 5 guys really be able to shoot the ball. Zach LaVine can shoot the laces off the ball. Same thing with Keon Ellis, and same thing with Keegan Murray. So they'll have an opportunity to do that, but I feel like they could become too predictable in offense if they play some of their other lineups. And this is where I get to the concern I have with the Russell Westbrook contract that they just signed. If you remember what I just said, guys like DeRozan and Sabonis can't really shoot the ball, but if you play a roster with LaVine, Monk, Keegan Murray, or Keon Ellis, like one of those 4 guys be the other 3 options, or 3 of those 4 guys be the other 3 options. I like it, but Russell Westbrook can't shoot really well. Like he can shoot a little bit, but his consistency of beyond the arc is not something to write home about. So I don't really know where he fits, because if you decide to start him at point guard, which he may be better than Schroeder, so they may decide to do that. I have concerns late game of not being able to shoot the ball. DeRozan can hit clutch threes, and Sabonis makes around a 3 a game, just 1 3 per game that he makes. But neither of those guys are really threats beyond the arc. So you need to be able to spread the floor. And if you got 3 guys that can really shoot, like Ellis, Monk, LaVine, or Ellis, LaVine, Keegan Murray, or 3 of those 4 guys, then I think it's doable. Because Sabonis is a great passer. DeRozan can drive and also shoot mid-ranges at a very high clip. But if you add Russell Westbrook into that mix, I have concerns regarding their spacing on offense.
Yeah, that's a great point you bring up. And Westbrook had a resurgence last year, but a lot of it was because he was playing with Jokic, and Jokic can make a lot of good plays. And I think Westbrook is still a good player in the NBA, but you mentioned a lot. Teams aren't really going to guard him from 3. You saw that a few years ago when he was on the Lakers. They just let him shoot it, and it wasn't good. He can be a great facilitator, but yeah, the problem is the spacing. And to me, kind of what the Kings should be is a young team and kind of move off guys to where they can start building a better roster. I think you can keep Sabonis, but it's more investing in guys like Keon Ellis. You could play with Monk still and move off from guys, but I don't see them doing that with just kind of what they've invested in LaVine, DeRozan, and now signing.
I think LaVine and DeRozan with Sabonis could work. The problem is I don't think it can work with they need a better point guard, and I don't think Russell Westbrook's the answer. They need a point guard that can stretch the floor. I think a perfect guy for this is obviously not going to happen. It's not. But if they could get like a Trae Young or a guy of that caliber that's also a great that can stretch the floor and put up points, I feel like would be a better matchup for their team. But because they already have 2 guys that can't shoot, well, you can't have 3 guys that can't shoot. So that's where I really find problems with this roster. I think you can have 2 on the court that aren't great shooters as long as they're great in basically everything else on offense, which Sabonis and DeRozan are. They're great playmakers. They can score on multiple levels inside the paint and in the mid-range. So they'll have the ability. Also, Sabonis is a great offensive rebounder. So they'll be able to get to those second chance points. But to have 3 in today's day and age is extremely difficult to play around. The Warriors really, for the past couple of years in the playoffs, didn't really have more than 3 capable shooters. If you think about it, like Draymond has been shooting like 32% from 3 the past couple of years. But Draymond's a great passer. He can finish well. He's a decent free throw shooter, and he's a great defender, so they can have him on the court. And then they have a guy like Kevon Looney who can't shoot either, but he's a great offensive rebounder and a great rebounder defensively. But then you have such great shooters around those 2 players that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter because you have Curry. And during this time, you'd also have Clay, and you'd either have Jordan Poole or Andrew Wiggins during that time, that they won a championship. So that's what made them so competitive, is they had great shooters around them. Those 2 guys that couldn't shoot, and those 2 guys that couldn't shoot also contributed in other ways. The problem is to have Russell Westbrook. Your 3 best passers on the court would be Russ, Sabonis, and DeRozan in no particular order. None of those guys can shoot. And that's a problem. So again, it just seems like a little bit of an archaic way to form your offense and not something that I think the Kings should necessarily have done. But they ended up doing it, and we'll have to see whether or not Russ can kind of rekindle last year's decent 3-point ability.
Yeah, we'll have to see, and I'm very interested to see. I want the Kings to be good, but it is, like you said, an archaic structure to building a team. We'll have to see how it works in the NBA. You got a final thought, and you can, yeah.
Yeah, as we are recording, actually, Keegan Murray just signed a 5-year, $140 million rookie contract extension. So they're committed. They're committed to some of the young guys like Keegan, who they should be. I think they should be committed to
Absolutely,
Keegan.
Yeah.
Keegan Murray, you have to. He was a top 5 pick, and he's also played well. You have Domantas Sabonis. I think you should definitely invest in him in the future. I think he's a top 5 center in the NBA easily. And then you also have Keon Ellis, another young guy. So those are 3 guys you can build around. Monk is also under 30, so you can build around Monk too if you believe in him. But I do think that they need to kind of fix their roster structure if they want to contend for a playoff spot in a very hard Western Conference this year.
Absolutely. They have to really think about building a solid roster, going young, and just how well this team can be in a really difficult Western Conference. As you said, we will keep you updated on all that. Let us know your thoughts in the comments. We appreciate you listening to Outsiders Opinions.